afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. May I have the roll call, please?
Chair McGill.
Here.
Vice Chair Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Aldana.
Present.
Commissioner Lesnar-Buxton. Commissioner Nielsen.
Present.
Commissioner Price.
Present.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Present.
Okay, thanks very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, thanks. I didn't get any written public comment over the course of the month. Has there been anything? No, okay, I didn't think so. Great. That takes us to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that's not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. Yours will come up with the agenda item. I don't have any speaker slips for this. Is there anybody online?
Yes, Chair McGill, there is one person online. For those who wish to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. For those wishing to speak on an item later in the meeting, please raise your hand when the item is under discussion. Do I have any hands raised? There are no hands raised.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. That takes us to the Commissioner Committee assignment reports. I think I will start on my right this month with Commissioner Ramsey.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thanks very much. Commissioner Price.
I attended the Golf Course Advisory Committee. I found it full of people who are passionate about the player experience, a lot of really great folks, a lot of great attention to detail about the way the course is playing and how people are finding it. I also would be remiss if I didn't say that it's also a business, right, as a standalone business for the city. And I didn't plan on this, but we have the lovely Tina Nelson to join us to give us a full readout on the financials of the golf course. I did want to highlight that during the presentation, you'll be hearing that they do plan on running an operational deficit in 2026 to address some significant capital expenditure projects. It will pull from reserves. This is not something that I found concerning at all, and I think she'll do a great job of explaining what exactly it means. But I would like to kind of reiterate, it's very mindful in their approach. They're doing a great job, and the operator seems to be doing, both operators seem to be doing a phenomenal job as stewards of this course.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Nielsen. Oh, excuse me, sorry, Commissioner Aldana. Sorry.
Well, I didn't make the meeting last month, but I did attend the Creeks meeting, so finally got around to making it. And then this month it was canceled. So.
Okay, thank you. And now, Commissioner Nielsen.
I've been able to attend 2 youth council meetings since our last time, and I enjoyed them greatly. So, in the first one, the matter of business was mostly filling all the vacancies they're going to have. Their tenure is more aligned with the school year. I think they have 9 seniors who are moving and leaving the committee, so they have quite a few seats to fill. I got to observe 3 interviews and the dialogue back and forth, which was just great to witness. A lot of deep, meaningful topics came up. It wasn't superficial stuff. It was stuff that really impacted our community, and these bright, talented kids really do care about the future of our town. And even just outside the scope of Parks and Rec, they were talking about big, important stuff. I think they'll make good decisions to fill those vacancies. And then they broke out into their small groups in order to continue their planning for their end-of-the-year activities and the turnover that they're going to have. In the second meeting, they were going to continue those interviews. I gave an update on what we've been up to, which they found interesting. We got some questions around the beach cleanup, around the open space plan, and they wanted to know from us how that youth council could contribute to the open space element that we were briefed on last time. I told them we would love to know what open space elements are important to them as we go through this update through the end of the year, and they might come back with something from their perspective on what accessibility and value they find in open space, and we'll see what comes of that.
Oh, fabulous. I'll tell you that every time we hear from that group, it gives me some cause for optimism. A lot of cause for optimism. It's a great group. Thank you. Vice Chair Clark.
Per usual, I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting and will be discussing all the trees that we visited later on in today's meeting.
All right, thanks. And let's see, we had a Park Foundation meeting earlier today, and we continued our planning for the upcoming performance series at the band shell, which you saw in the director's report. We also had an integrated pest management committee meeting last week, where we did a couple of exemption approvals for some fumigation at the waterfront and had a great show and tell on a new kind of squirrel trap. So fun and educational as always. And then the De La Guerra Plaza Revitalization Arts and Culture Subcommittee has started meeting again, and we've had 2 meetings this year. We had the second one a couple weeks ago, and really continuing the conversation to progress the public art in the plaza, what it's going to look like, how to go out for the calls, materials, et cetera. So we're meeting again in the beginning of early May. And that's that for the assignment reports. Commission and staff communications, do we have anything?
Nothing additional to report?
Okay, thank you. And that takes us to ceremonial items. Do we have any employee recognition this month?
Yes, Chair McGill and Commissioners, Kristen Bain is a senior tree trimmer in our urban forestry program, and she was recognized for 10 years of service. We have a small but mighty urban forestry team, and she is one of our 2 senior tree trimmers that leads crews through probably some easy and some extremely complex tree care work that happens throughout the city. So we're very grateful to have her on board.
Yes, well, congratulations, Kristen. The few times I've seen her out and about, it's been fun to just interact with her, and she's always engaging and obviously really passionate about what she's doing. So congratulations to her and to the whole team. All right, that takes us to consent items. And assume there anything there. There was nothing, looks straightforward. So no comments or questions. That will take us to the minutes of the last meeting. The recommendation being that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes from March 26th. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Assuming there's no discussion, we'll go ahead and go to a vote. All right, it passed and we've moved on. And that takes us to the trees.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon.
Mr. Slack.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a single queen palm located within the front setback of the property at 1025 Chino Street. The applicant listed one primary concern on the application for removal. They stated that the tree had this thing called leaning crown syndrome, which is, we explained in the report, it's like a deformation of the crown, and it gets progressively worse, and it's essentially uncorrectable. In review on site, the committee didn't really see like any definitive evidence that that was really going on, but we had the opportunity to talk to the applicant too, and I think that while they didn't list it, there's just a challenge with this really dense sort of fruit forest that they have in their front yard and this lone queen palm kind of raining debris down on it, in addition to the concerns with the leaning crown. The general consensus was that if it was present, it was probably very subtle and really couldn't be diagnosed, from the ground level. But they were also in agreement that the palm really didn't provide tremendous contribution to the local neighborhood and the front yard, specifically stating how many fruit trees were present and that there was very little value in retention of the palm, even though the arguments for its removal may have been on the weaker side. So the committee, after review, did recommend approval and stated that the commission could use the finding that the character of the neighborhood wouldn't be materially impacted by the removal. And then naturally, given the dense planting in the front setback, there was no conditional replacements associated with the recommendation.
Okay, thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Okay, Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, we've heard in some of these reports the difference between fair health and good health. How would you characterize fair health on the spectrum of what we're looking at with a tree? Does that, would you like to nuance the fair health of this tree compared to other significantly more healthy trees in any way?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I think when I say it's just okay, to put it simply, it's not the picture of great health. There's some general yellowing of the fronds. We see that, so like in a perfect scenario, you would have like super lush, deep green palm fronds, and you would probably have to supplement with fertilization in order to really have like a super healthy queen palm. So it's just fair as a sort of I think a common way, like in a botanical sense of just saying it's an average health.
Thank you.
Anything else? What's the problem with tilted crown?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, it's a deformation, and eventually it gets so pronounced that it's kind of like completely arched over.
So it's really an aesthetic thing as opposed to a health?
Yeah, it doesn't really, things don't die, but things get really funky. And it's supposedly associated with like a boron deficiency, but it's of no significant consequence, and it occurs pretty infrequently, so there's not like a lot of research done into it. And then this is completely unnecessary, but there have been attempts to cut the palm aggressively. So the meristem, the part that grows out of the head of the palm, is buried kind of deep down within the upper portion. And so you make all of these cuts, and you actually keep cutting down, and then you look at the tissue, and if you cut down deep enough, it gets concentric again, and the growth will be good again for some period of time, but it usually reverts back.
Okay. Thanks. All right, I don't have a speaker slip. And is there anybody online for this tree?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will open it up for discussion and/or a motion, if as appropriate. Commissioner Aldana?
Yeah, I'll make the motion,
Okay.
unless there's somebody that wants to say something.
I have no,
Okay, so then the motion is to agree with the street tree committee and to remove it.
okay. Commissioner Nielsen?
I was going to try to ask a question.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Discussion before his motion, but do we need to continue on
No,
Commissioner?
go ahead and ask the question, we'll see where we get, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Because we don't have a second, so we're, yeah.
I guess maybe for more of our experienced commissioners, how do we characterize significant impact to the character of the neighborhood? Seems like every tree kind of has its merits on its own. We can see palm trees in the immediate area. How much work is that we're doing for the rest of the panel here?
Vice Chair Clark, you're a good one to take this.
Well, I don't know if Mr. Slack is more qualified to answer the question, but for me, when you go out there and you try to picture the neighborhood without that palm tree, do you see a striking difference? When you look at it, do you feel like the neighborhood is less because of the lack of the palm tree?
Yeah,
I think and also like, will the neighborhood be denuded? Is there still a lot of tree cover and canopy? Am I correct, Mr. Slack? Is that?
Commissioners, I think Vice Chair Clark did a pretty good job of surmising at least how the Street Tree Advisory Committee looks at it. So a lot of it is kind of boots on the ground, and you really are kind of getting the feel for the street. You know, like there's definitely instances where even, I think in the Calle Bello application that we'll see later, the removal of those trees, it's hard to imagine that it would have this sort of like shock factor if they were removed. And so a lot of it is just kind of how it feels at the street level. And I think too, you know, I think that it's used as a tool to, I think, allow some leniency in some applications that just make practical sense. You know, a lot of the findings can be quite rigid, I think, when you really kind of get boxed in with some of them. And in this case, I think it's pretty rational to say that the removal of this palm doesn't have a huge significant impact on, let alone this individual property, but the overall feel of the street. And so it gives the commission a latitude to, you know, approve an application without feeling boxed in where every single live tree is just a flat out no because it's alive.
Thank you, Mr. Slack. Thank you, Vice Chair Clark. I think that what's going through my mind is that I'm wondering if there were many other applications of this nature in this neighborhood of trees of this type, does it matter in quantity to us? Or is it, we just take it case by case, and since this is the one in front of us, or is this setting some precedent that that's a tree of fair health, and it might not be significant on its own, but if all the other palm trees in the neighborhood also same fate, that feels like that would change the neighborhood? And are we, looking at this one as an example, or are we looking at this one in isolation? Because this is the first time I think that the recommendation from the advisory committee has given us removal based only on this finding. So it feels worth discussing to me, at least because I've not seen this before.
Chair McGill and commissioners, I think we have seen this one historically, even though some of the commissioners are obviously new, so we're only a few months in. And I do think, to your point, applications are unique, and even if you were to receive additional, say, applications for the street that also involve queen palms, they would be unique based on the parcel, how the parcel looks and feels, and also, you know, the overall contribution to the street too. But I do think, you know, again, it does there's some latitude given within that finding that doesn't exist in other ones. And I think that the commissioners that have seen lots of recommendations from the Street Tree Advisory Committee, you know, in general, I think palms are not seen as valuable to like the local streetscape and individual properties as a shade tree, you know, and to a lesser extent, we've seen evergreen ash, which is a shade tree, but that's been kind of highlighted as a nuisance problem tree by the Street Tree Advisory Committee. And I think to a somewhat lesser extent, we've seen blue gums be recommended for removal that, you know, would be in fair health and that sort of general categorization. And the committee sees them as somewhat problematic due to their failure profile and, you know, sort of the weedy nature of the tree and the propensity for them to be somewhat contributors, like from a fire perspective. So, but again, I think each application is unique, and you can feel confident you're not setting a precedent by approving one application.
And I guess, pick up, yeah. No, it's good to have these conversations. I think it's also fair to say, certainly in my time on the commission, which is becoming significant, and I think since you've been here even way longer, this conversation is evolving, because thinking on things like palms and certainly evergreen ash and eucalyptus is evolving as conditions change. And I guess the other thing that I think about when I think about significant is everything that Mr. Slack mentioned, but also what plantings surround it. I mean, what else is in the neighborhood? What else in this case is on this plot? And then what additional landscaping is being considered? So there's definitely not one size fits all with this stuff. And Vice Chair Clark, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, you guys have mostly said what I wanted to tell you. Being a new commissioner, when I first started doing this, that was one of my biggest worries, was setting a precedent. And I would always look at that map and be like, well, if we take out one tree, then, you know, the next applicant, that tree will come out, and the next thing you know, that map will be brown and blue, not green and blue. But what Mr. Slack said is correct. It's every tree on a, we're looking at them as individuals. And if that palm tree comes out, doesn't mean that we're going to just say yes to all the other palm trees in neighborhoods that people request to get removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the additional discussion.
Yeah, no, great, thanks. Commissioner Aldana,
Just a quick question, this is for future reference. Isn't it protocol to do a motion, a second, and then you have a discussion, or does it not matter?
well, it's actually, you're going to test my Robert's Rules of Order, which is not my strong suit here, but generally it'd be motion second and then any further discussion. And it's, since there wasn't a second, there wasn't a closed motion, so it seemed like, it was a good discussion and it was timely to have it. Yeah.
But Commissioner Aldana, what you actually said was, you said you were going to make a motion if no one else had any questions. And then Commissioner here was going for the button. And so you did give him the leeway. Yeah.
Okay, all right, with that, are we ready to formalize a motion?
Yes.
Commissioner
I would like
Aldana.
to formally make the motion to agree with the street tree committee and remove the palm.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second? I will second the motion. All right, and do we have any further discussion? Can we go to a vote? All right, and the motion passes. And that takes us to Northridge.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove 3 queen palms. These also are located within the front setback of the property at 1260 Northridge Road. So the reason for the request for these specific 3 queen palms for removal is development of the property. So it's difficult to see from the site plan that was submitted, but the garage is kind of being reconstructed and shifted forward, and that puts the garage in direct conflict with those 3 existing palms. In review, the committee determined pretty quickly that it was a reasonable and practical development of the property. There was a landscape plan submitted as well that showed 6 replacement gold medallion trees planted kind of like in a soldier pattern along the main entrance. So essentially from the committee's perspective, we were looking at sort of a 2-to-1 replacement ratio with the added benefit of getting canopy trees as opposed to queen palms, which are seen as less valuable from an environmental viewpoint. So after review and discussion, the committee made a recommendation essentially to approve the application as proposed, which would hold them accountable for the replacement trees and determine that the commission could make the finding that a reasonable and practical development of the property constituted removal of the 3 queen palms.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? I would hate to have that setback situation. Look like a nightmare. All right. There are no questions. I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Yes, and we do have someone with their hand raised. So Shelby Mesner, when I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Shelby Messner-Janke. I am the agent for the property owner, and I just wanted to make it known that I'm available for questions. We also attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee when they recommended approval, and we're supportive of their recommendation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. With that, I'd like to open it up for discussion. Any questions and a motion if someone is ready to make a motion. Commissioner Price.
Thank you, Chair. I really like that the proposal is, as Mr. Slack mentioned, is a 2-to-1 biomass replacement. And I am inclined to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee on this one. Sounds
So
very
is that a
thoughtful.
motion?
No, it's not a motion, it's a discussion.
Okay. I want to be careful this time. Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. I will make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee to remove the 3 queen palms at 1260 Northridge Road.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. If there is no further discussion, I will go to a vote. All right, and the motion passes, and that takes us to our last tree of the month on Cayabello.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 2 blue gum eucalyptus. These are located within the front setback of the property at 112 Cayabello. The applicant listed multiple reasons for removal. A lot of them consisted around like concerns with property damage, tree failure, fire, as well as potential impacts to like evacuation routes. And Barker Pass is an actual bona fide evacuation route in the event of an emergency. The committee looked at the trees. They referenced, the pretty heavy pruning that Edison had done probably within the past couple years. The trees had previously been quite a bit larger, but due to, sort of more aggressive pruning practices, they performed a more heavy reduction than they had in years past. The trees were, kind of in average condition, so we would say they were in fair health overall. There were discussions about, the safety concerns, and I think that the committee, as we referenced in the staff report as well, kind of leaned back into previous reviews. There were some reviews last fall further down the hill on Barker Pass that involved large blue gums that were in, average health that were actually recommended for approval for very similar reasons, and a lot of that had to do with the concerns with the trees. A lot of times when we talk about blue gums, they tend to fail at the soil line, so we're looking at a whole tree failure. There was no risk assessment performed, but just in terms of when these trees do fail, they tend to, a lot of times it can be the whole tree, and there were concerns about the same thing happening that they discussed with the previous blue gum applications, that like impacts to evacuation routes and things of that nature. Less of a fire concern because the pruning was pretty significant, so I think in the event of failure it's probably not impacting the conductor, so a lot of it had to do with tree failure impacting just the evacuation routes in previous reviews where the committee had recommended approval. So after pretty lengthy discussion, they did conclude, and there was consensus to support removal of both of the blue gums. And then they talked about whether there should be any kind of mitigation. The applicant had pointed out that there's a young new oak growing kind of in close proximity to the blue gums. There was sort of mixed opinions on whether a replacement tree was truly necessary or not. They ended up deciding that it did make sense to condition a replacement tree that could achieve 30 feet in height, somewhere within that general zone. And in talking to the applicant, they were amenable to the condition as well. And then after review, the committee made a recommendation to approve the removal of the 2 blue gums on the condition a new tree would be planted that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity. And they did also use the recommendation the commission could say that the character of the neighborhood would not be materially impacted by the removal of the trees.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Slack. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Nielsen.
Just for clarification, so the recently planted oak tree is not the same tree that's the recommendation is contingent on. It's a new 30-foot tree. Is that accurate?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, yeah, that's correct. So it would be a new tree would be planted as condition, if the commission approves the removals.
Commissioner Price.
I believe in the supplemental material, it said that the oak tree was planted in kind of the anticipation that one of these would be removed. Is that correct? Or am I mixing up applications?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, your memory is probably better than mine, it sounds like right now. I don't remember specifically what it said. I assume it probably, I don't know if it was planted or it germinated, but I don't recall.
I looked down and saw, yes, it is.
The answer is yes.
Yes, it is. We planted a native oak in anticipation, so yes, thank you.
Vice Chair Clark.
I don't remember whether or not this was part of the discussion, but was there any discussion on using the finding that the regard for the safety of persons or property dictates the removal with regard to evacuation routes?
Chair McGill, Vice Chair Clark, I think from historically the committee's recommendation, that's typically not a finding that's used. It carries a lot of weight. I mean, if the commission concurred with the recommendation and felt that that was a more appropriate finding, you could certainly use that. But historically, the Street Tree Advisory Committee's not used that finding very often.
I guess I had one question. When I went up there, I was looking at the gradient. I mean, just actually the way the trees are kind of in this almost like a little mini ravine. Was there any discussion, I'm thinking about the evacuation route conversation now, was there any discussion with the committee about which way the trees would actually fail were that to happen? I mean, what I'm really wondering is, are they actually going to block the road, or are they going to fall the other way?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think there was some conversation there. I think that, the Street Tree Advisory Committee, blue gum is not like super high on its list of great trees either, just to be completely honest. And I think that should be part of the conversation in terms of there is sort of a hierarchy of valuable, trees versus trees that may not be as valuable to the landscape. And I think that you could argue either way. They do lean probably more towards the property. But it depends on the loading factors and the wind direction. I always say never with trees anymore, because I've seen countless times I've been wrong about things that I thought for sure I would not be wrong about. So could it happen? It absolutely could. The likelihood of it is probably not super high in terms of it failing towards the road, as opposed to towards the property. So I'd say your observations were probably, pretty accurate, but again, you just simply don't know when one of these things does fail.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Nilsen.
Commissioner Slack, I think you educated us in prior events that if it's a conditional approval, it's at the time the permit is issued that the planting of what the replacement tree is identified. In this situation, how do we make the determination whether the proposed tree would meet this 30-foot criteria that was set by the advisory committee?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, typically we just dialogue with the applicant and just basically confirm that what they're proposing meets the condition. It's pretty easy to do with, 25, 30 feet. Most trees kind of hit that mark. So we just have a conversation, usually identify it on the permit too if we know the species for sure.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I do have one speaker slip, and it's from Greg Thorpe. Are you going to want to come up? You're welcome.
I'm Greg Thorpe. I'm the owner of the property and the applicant in this matter. I'm here to answer questions, be available to answer questions, but we agree with the recommendation, are happy to plant another replacement tree. And I do note, in terms of the questions on safety and the evacuation route impacts, about 5 years ago, a car went out of control and hit the power pole, which you can see there on the right side, and also damaged some of the ties that are holding the power pole in place, and the power pole fell over onto Barker Pass, blocked it for over 6 hours, entirely blocked the road. It took Edison a long time to shut down the power lines, take it out. And I think from my experience of having another tree fail in similar circumstances, it's more likely this tree would hit the power lines or the power pole, and that would cascade into the street. Since we can't see this is a pivot point in the power lines. Power lines come up the west side of Barker Pass. Then in the turn here, they come over one power pole here, and the lines then go back to the other side, so they're pulling the pole to the street. And that's what happened when the car hit it. If the trees failed and fall in the direction of the wind, which is towards the pole, it's likely to be repeated.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually good information. Thanks very much. All right, with that, open for discussion and/or a motion as appropriate. Commissioner Price.
Two things. First of all, welcome back, Mr. Slack. And then second, I'd like to make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee and condition the approval on based on the replacement tree that can achieve a 30-foot height and maturity.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Unless there is any further discussion, I will, we need a finding. Thank you. You want to use the recommended finding?
The recommended finding, yes, of, was it material, the character of the immediate neighborhood with respect to the forestation will not be materially affected by the proposed removal.
Thank you. All right, we have motion, second, and a finding now, and unless there's any further discussion, I'll go ahead and take it to a vote. And the motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Slack. And so that takes us out of the trees, and we are out of the woods and really into the weeds. All right, so that takes us to the director's report.
Chair McGill, members of the commission, you actually have a very detailed description of the lifeguard certification programs that the department is offering again this year. So I won't go word for word through it because you actually have a budget item that I think will take up most of the rest of your time. But the city is offering, the department's offering 2 reduced cost lifeguard certification programs, one for pool lifeguard training and the other for beach lifeguard training. The pool lifeguard training is offered at a reduced rate of $50 for city residents. It's about 30 hours of training. It follows in accordance with the American Red Cross certification, online learning, classroom work, and in-water practice. And there are a bunch of skills that's covered, CPR, AED, and first aid. And the sessions are scheduled around the Memorial Day weekend, which is May 24th, 25th, and 26th. And the idea behind that is it's accommodating students and young adults when people are more likely to be able to attend something like that, even if they want a long weekend, right? And then the beach lifeguard training is a 56-hour course, and it's a prerequisite for employment as a beach lifeguard or a junior lifeguard with our programs. It's very intensive, includes 4 days of training, hands-on, ocean, in-service shift with a certified lifeguard, and an online pre-course. And instructor is provided by certified open water lifeguards and includes ocean rescue techniques, surf conditioning, and team coordination. It will be held 2 weekends, May 10 through 11 and May 16 through 18. I think those are weekends. Yes, they must be. So not only does it allow us to train employees for our programs, but it also broadens our community's understanding and skills in terms of serving as a lifeguard and safety, which is really critical. It's one of the programs that we take great pride in, that we provide. In addition, as you will learn, as our new commissioners will learn as the summer goes on, our Learn to Swim programs are also really important to us as well. And then we have trail maintenance days. One already happened, which we do in conjunction with Santa Barbara County, the U.S. Forest Service, Montecito Trails Foundation, Los Padres Forest Association, and the Sage Trail Alliance. This one is on Cold Spring Trail, Cold Spring and the Ridge Trail, and the West Fork of Cold Spring Trail. I don't have a report on how many were there. I should have asked, so we might come back and give you more detail, but I think we were shooting for 70. Perhaps Courtney can fill me in.
Yeah, if I may, we did have 50 volunteers.
50?
50, yes.
50. And the next one is scheduled for June 7th for the Rattlesnake Canyon Trail, which is within a city-owned space. I just want to point out, you had a presentation from Steve Biddle last month. Steve has been our leader when it comes to our trail maintenance work. We embarked on this effort back in 2007 when we did joint hearings with the county and the U.S. Forest Service to both address conflict issues on the trail, but also the fact that there was no agency funding and not great coordination around how to maintain our trail system, which is highly loved and highly used by members throughout the South Coast community, as well as visitors to Santa Barbara. Since then, we did a lot of work to work better together, and I just want to acknowledge that the trail organizations that have volunteers, but they also are professional trail builders and repair groups, so we sometimes are able to hire them to do projects, has grown significantly since that time. And Santa Barbara is really fortunate to have these organizations of people that are really, really dedicated to ensuring that we have safe and accessible trails. So a big shout out to them. It's been our department's priority to play a role in it, even though we didn't do it at all before 2007, besides Catch as Catch Can. And again, leadership from Steve Biddle, but we also have other staff that participate on a regular basis. And we're committed to continuing to train new staff that want to be part of our trail crews when we have these volunteer events. And then the band shell. Chair McGill was at our park board meeting at lunchtime today where we were trying to come through, when you start a new program, it takes more work than you think it's going to take because you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen. However, good news is the Park Foundation wants to host 4 events at the band shell this summer season. We have 2 that are already scheduled. The first one is May 24th, and Bob Baker Marionette Theater will be coming up from the LA area. And then on Saturday, July 26th, we have the Music Academy presenting brass at the band shell, which will be a free community concert at 11 a.m. The marionettes will also be free. I should let you know these are free to the community. Our goal, which has always been our goal when we embarked on renovating the band shell, is to reinvigorate Plaza Del Mar, to provide free events. In addition to what others may want to program there, Juneteenth, for the example, is going to have their event at Plaza Del Mar. And we're very grateful that the Park Foundation wants to underwrite 4 events this year, and hopefully it'll be the beginning of a long-standing tradition. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Any questions? Commissioner Nielsen.
I guess more of a comment, Director Zachary. I've had the pleasure of joining several trail maintenance days with Mr. Biddle and Sage Trail Alliance. They're always really well organized. The safety, the equipment, everything is really well thought through. They do a great job out there. If you guys haven't had a chance to do it, there's opportunities for people of all ability levels, which is wonderful. It's a really good community event. I've been at Cold Springs quite a bit recently. The trail's looking really good. It is much appreciated. And that coordination with the Forest Department as we extend our boundaries outside of the city limits to get access to all those trails it's a wonderful job. I think the team deserves a lot of credit for accomplishing it, and all the partner organizations that do the outreach as well to get their target audiences to show up at these events is really well done.
Thank you. All right. I see Commissioner Ramsey's hand. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Director Zachary, really excited about the Lifeguard Association program. Giving jobs to the youth really just kind of gives them a purpose at a young age. I know I was working at a very young age as well. How are the numbers? Is it meeting the demand we need to keep the beaches safe, I guess?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, I'm going to have Adam Porte tell you where we are for this year, but I can say, and Rich Hanna can speak to this, we were the only organization at the first summer of the pandemic and we had almost no funding, but we had a solid core group of lifeguards that did their best to address safety issues and manage our beaches when everybody from Los Angeles was coming up here, and it was crazy. But we also were able to offer a very controlled, is probably the nice way to say it, managed junior lifeguard program following extraordinarily strict health protocols. And lastly, and before Adam jumps in, last year for our new commissioners, the department took an important step and increased the salaries of our hourly staff so that we could be competitive and above competitive to ensure that we were fully staffed for the summer season. We did that without getting additional general fund allocation for it because we made it work within our budget. So those are the things that our department goes above and beyond because our concern is community safety in our parks, on our beaches, in the water, and then also providing really great programming at the same time. Maybe Adam can add more about this year?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ransby, my name is Adam Porte, Recreation Programs Manager. Actually, Director Zachary stole most of the words out of my mouth, but to kind of just touch a little bit on it, the numbers for what we were referring to in the director's report are actually, all those numbers are actually full right now. So there's a lot of people that want to become lifeguards for us, whether it's pool lifeguards or beach lifeguards. And so those classes are all full, and they're doing really well, and it's a really good resource for younger people in the community as well as older people. We do have some older people that are enrolled in these lifeguarding classes. And so it gives the opportunity to the community to learn these valuable skills and possibly become employed with us or just have those skills for their family and their friends.
Thank you very much, Mr. Porte. It's wonderful to hear that the program's full and at a $50, buy-in. I'm not surprised. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. I think that's that for the director's report. I'm looking forward to the band shell getting going. I think that's going to be great fun. And that takes us to the budget discussion.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, Tina Nelson, our business manager, is going to be doing the presentation. Before she starts, I also want to acknowledge that our division managers are here to answer any questions related to recreation parks, and then also Jasmine, the assistant director. So Rich Hanna, Simone Herrera, you just heard from Adam Porte, and as I mentioned, Jasmine LeBlanc. I would also like to just give a little bit of preview. I don't know that Tina's going to do this, or maybe I'll steal her thunder too, but this is a group effort. The people that are in this room are only some of the people that put this budget together because we rely on our recreation supervisors. We work with our park staff. At the administrative level, we look very carefully at all the things that we're doing. And within our department, there's a lot of effort throughout the department to put together a budget that we believe will be successful, and you'll hear about it, and part of that need to be successful is the requirement to generate revenue in order to provide the services that we have. We're not given a check that says go have fun for the year. We're said here's a portion of the check, now figure out how to make it all happen. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Tina.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, Tina Nelson, Business Manager, here to present the recommended financial plan for fiscal year 2026 and 2027 for the Parks and Recreation Department. In our presentation, we'll give a department overview. I'll be reviewing general fund operating and capital expenditures, as well as revenues, the golf fund, and then our performance measures that we have in place for fiscal year 26. The Parks and Recreation Department has a wide scope of work. There's many programs that we deliver throughout the divisions, from the beaches to the trails, as previously discussed in the director's report. We have 60 parks and sports facilities, 16 community buildings, over 1,800 acres of parkland, over 40 miles of trails, 6 miles of beach, and over 70,000 street trees and park trees within our jurisdiction. So you can see that there's a lot to keep us busy as we're going out into the parks and into the community on a daily basis. Certainly, we can't do it alone as a leadership team. We have a team of amazing employees that help us deliver 16 programs across 3 funds. We rely on a proposed 85 full-time employees and 235 part-time employees within the department. This pie chart here reflects how we allocate our full-time permanent staff. You can see that within the administration division, we have 8.35 full-time employees, 0.5 within golf. There's part of a few of us that contribute to the golf fund oversight. We have 47.35 within the Parks Division and 25.8 within Recreation. So when you look at our part-time employees, that division, we have more full-time employees within the Parks Division, and we rely on fewer, yet certainly very important hourly part-time staff within Recreation. We rely heavily on our part-time staff to deliver our seasonal and year-round programs, such as the lifeguard programs and other staffing of the facilities, facility monitors when we're renting out our venues for community events. In addition to the staff within the department, we also rely on many community partnerships. We have maintenance and management contract agreements, service agreements, and co-sponsorships and collaborations. So it is a community and team effort that pulls together to deliver all the different programs and services offered by the department. Within the general fund, we have a general fund tax dollar allocation that we utilize to help us have a net budget. Part of that allocation then is offset by revenues generated within the department. Our proposed revenue budget for fiscal year 26 is just over $6 million and almost $6.5 million in fiscal year 27 within the Recreation Division. And this is mainly through the services, fees for service, the venue rentals, facilities. The Administration Division brings in is proposing to bring in $340,000 in fiscal year 26 and similar in fiscal year 27. And this is done through capital reimbursements for project management staff. We do receive some revenue from the Golf Fund for division oversight and overhead, and also through some rents that we receive. And then within the Parks Division, just over $2 million each fiscal year is proposed, and this is through service agreements providing maintenance within Water Resources Division of the Public Works Department, and also the waterfront and other services from Parks Division. So as you can see in this pie chart, it just kind of gives you a little bit of a better visual where 73% of the department revenue comes in from the Recreation Division, 23% from Parks, and then 4% from Administration. A further breakdown of our revenue shows you what type of revenue we're bringing in. So internal charges, we refer to, you can see, is 19% of the department revenue, and that is money that we receive from user utility tax dollars. We call that UUT revenue, and that is for the maintenance of street trees and parkways and medians. We have the parks management labor charges for capital projects. Use of money and property is rents received for nonprofit rentals of some of space in our community centers, as well as rentals for personal and private events. In the community centers, we have McKenzie Center, we have Franklin Neighborhood Center, Louise Lowry Davis Center. These centers all have spaces that are available for the community to rent, and that is where this money is reflected. Other revenues would be our beachfront maintenance contract, ranger services that are provided to the Santa Barbara Unified School District. We receive some monies for Chase Palm Park distribution for a park that's going to be built when the hotel that is underway is constructed. So we receive some monies for that. And lastly, our service charges, which is the lion's share of the revenue that we receive for camps, facility rentals, youth and adult activities, and sports aquatics programs. And as we come up with the fees that we propose, part of our budget process is to review and propose changes to the fee schedule. And this is done through some different types of rationales. What drives this decision-making process is that we look at our fees schedule on a continuum with, does it provide a large community benefit, or is it, which would be at a lower cost to the community or sometimes free, to is it an individual benefit, in which case we would be going for higher cost recovery as we go through this budget process. Fee considerations would be to achieve cost recovery for those individual, like a pickleball permit, an annual pickleball permit, or a private tennis lesson. We're looking to achieve almost or completely full cost recovery. We also want to establish and work within what's the going market rate. We do have the goal of maximizing participation because we don't want to set our fees so high that people don't enroll because they can't afford it. So it's that fine balance of we're competitive with what else is going on within the community. And we also do want to encourage compliance so that people are booking and reserving space through the department instead of going around those channels, and that allows us to provide safer environments for community enjoyment of the recreation and park spaces that we have to offer. So we have several fee tiers as we look at cost recovery, and you can see that for community benefit, the higher the community benefit, we're looking to achieve 0 to 20% cost recovery within those programs because it has such that great community benefit. 21 to 50% for still the high community, but maybe not as high as some others. And then low would be individual participant use of space or rentals of venues. We also do offer free programs and services. So the Summer Fun Youth Program that's offered in the summer, Recreation Swim, Food Distribution, Youth Apprentice, and Arts Alliance are all examples of free programs offered by the department, as well as scholarship opportunities for camps and classes that we have. The Campership Alliance with the Santa Barbara Police Activities League, and the Recreation After School Program. General fund expenditures, department expenditures for fiscal year 26 are just over $28 million. This would be offset by the revenue generated, so the net budget would be what the general fund tax covers. We're proposing $12.2 million within recreation for fiscal year 26, $13 million in fiscal year 27. Just under $3 million for administration in fiscal year 26 and $3 million in fiscal year 27, and then 12.8 for parks in fiscal year 26 and $13 million in fiscal year 27. Our expenditures are broken up into these categories that you see up here on the pie chart, with 56% of our expenditures being tied to salaries and benefits for our permanent and part-time staff. We have supplies and services, which are 18% of the cost of delivering services within the department, and this would be water, personal protective equipment, soil amendments, all the different supplies that we offer, and also the cost of our contractual agreements that we have for service providers and for outside entities that we also hire to help supplement and deliver services for maintenance within the parks. And then allocated costs. Allocated costs are the charges that are assessed to our department for internal services within the city. This is where you would see our facilities costs, fleet, IT services, overhead from the finance department, HR. These are the allocated costs that are charged to the department from internal non-customer facing departments within the city that we couldn't deliver the service we offer without their support. So it is $6.86 million, so 24% of the department's costs. And a further breakdown of allocated costs on this slide, as you can see, it does represent 36% of our department's subsidy or general fund tax dollars in fiscal year '26, which is proposed at $19.29 million. If you were to take that out or adjust it at subsidy to cover everything else that the department delivers would be $12.42 million. So custodial services to help maintain our buildings in a safe and clean manner, 14%. Facilities maintenance is the largest number there because, as you saw on one of our previous slides, we have a lot of facilities within department, probably more, the most of any other department within the city. So that's the biggest cost as we look at allocated costs. We have insurance, IT, and motor pool, the other large allocations. Supplies and services at $5 million. This is 18% of our department expenditures. 23% of this expenditure is water. This number continues to grow. There will be a 10% water rate increase that is going into effect on July 1st. So this budget was actually, were able to increase our allocation for expenditures to address this increase. We're very conservative and mindful of watering. The Parks Division, our leadership in that team is constantly watering or monitoring the level of watering. We have smart meters, and actually, if you want, I want to make note of our water costs. That 50% of our, almost 50% of our water cost is actually the cost of the meters alone. So even if we were to cut back on watering to try to save money, we would still be spending just over right around $500,000 just to pay for the meters that are in existence in the different parks and recreation spaces. Again, we have equipment repair, minor tools, facilities maintenance, janitorial. All of these are the different expenditures that live within this budget line. I've broken it out by division so that you can see how each division allocates their expenses by their different programs. And again, you can see this is recreation at $12.3 million of those expenditures. Facilities and events, aquatics, the programs that have the facilities, you can see that those are higher cost because there's more work that needs to be done and more support for these programs because of the facilities that are attached to them. And in the Parks Division, we also, Park Operations, which is our largest program within the Parks Division, with our ground maintenance and working in there is $8.2 million for their portion with forestry behind them with the fleet vehicles and the larger programs. Within the administration program at $1.5 million. The administration program is where our ranger services are warehoused and then our park leadership, our park manager and administration team is. We have our capital program, and I'm going to do my best to step into Jill's shoes here, but Jill, you can help me out if I mess up here in any way. But we have a capital improvement program overview proposed for fiscal year 26 and 27 is a total of $8.1 million, roughly $4 million for each fiscal year. These are funds that are set aside to reinvest in community buildings, sports facilities, and park renovations. As we look at these, and as you heard in the capital presentation that we had a few months ago, we do assess, is it high use? What is the public benefit? What is the facility condition? How is safety and access being impacted? All of these are tied into proposing and receiving funds to renovate and reinvigorate the different infrastructures that we have within the department. Is there a community demand or need? And is there an opportunity for long-term benefit? Projects proposed for fiscal year 26, we have our Carrillo Gym renovations. So there is funding. This is a renovation that's currently in progress right now, and this is a multi-year progress that will address different components of renovating the gym. Dwight Murphy Field renovation. This money here is the loan repayment that we'll be budgeting for that is going to be due starting with the the project implementation. So this is the interest payment on the bond. We have some money set aside for completing project design for Franceschi Park renovation for fiscal year '26. We have Los Baños pool repair and expansion. There are some pool structural needs that need to be addressed within the next couple of fiscal years. So we have $500,000 in fiscal year '26 and then $1.5 million in fiscal year '27. There's going to be a minor renewal to Casa Las Palmas in fiscal year '27 to complete some of the work that's ongoing right now with the Arbor project, and there's some renewals going on. So once this is all done, it's going to be a very nice space for the community to use. We have the Ortega Park revitalization project, some money for fiscal year '26 to continue funding for the final plans, permits, and soil remediation options that need to take place before we can move to constructing the proposed project. Then we have money that is set aside annually, as much as we can, to address park field renewal and irrigation needs, infrastructure safety programs, and restroom renovations. With 23 public restrooms, there's always work to be done in renovating and keeping the restrooms open and safe and clean and usable for the public. They're in high demand. We also have an equipment fund. This is fairly new funding for the department. Prior to receiving this funding, there were no monies set aside to replace things like our large mowers. Recently purchased a jet ski for the aquatics program for the beach lifeguards. Things like this. This is money that had to be found within our existing budget, so we've been fortunate enough to have funding allocated to the department for the next few years to assist with purchasing some of these larger pieces of equipment that fall within the capital category, so that we don't have to perhaps not deliver a program or service or buy something else within our operating budget. So that we're very fortunate to have this funding. A Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we have received funding, and this has been a long time in the making. I think it's been over 20 years. I'm trying to remember the exact number of years since a comprehensive citywide plan has been developed, and so we have that underway, and that will address comprehensively what the department needs, so that will allow us to better budget and assess and address what does need capital funding in the future. And playground replacement, Plaza Veracruz renovations for the community building in Plaza Veracruz is vacant right now and needs some infrastructure. And once that's done, we hope to be able to rent that space out to the community. We have money set aside for trails and walkways, the urban forest management plan implementation. There will be a tree inventory taking place in fiscal year '26, and this money is also to assist with the maintenance of the street trees. The operations budget does not cover all the needs that have to take place with maintaining these trees, so this is funding that helps supplement that tree care. And then the West Beach Splash Playground and West Side Neighborhood Centers are also slotted to receive some capital funding. And that takes me to the Golf Fund. I hope I can do justice to Commissioner Price's lead-in, but I'll do my best. The Golf Fund is an enterprise fund, so unlike the general fund, it does not receive any tax dollars. The Golf Fund pays for itself, and it does this through the golf fees that are received for use of the space and from restaurant concession monies. It is dedicated to providing residents and visitors with an exceptional and affordable golfing experience in a friendly, inclusive environment. Its priorities are to provide excellent customer service, maintain a great value for the money, to sustain higher rounds of play each year so that it continues to pay for itself. It's been doing very well since COVID and beyond. We're pleased to report that we haven't seen any slowdown in the use of the golf course since 2020. It's going steady and strong. And reinvesting in the golf course infrastructure. We're proposing just under 75,000 paid rounds of golf for fiscal year '26 and '27, with $5.2 million in revenues in fiscal year '26 and $5.4 million in fiscal year '27. Expenditures are just under $6 million in fiscal year '26 and just over $6 million in fiscal year '27. The three categories that we allocate these expenditures to would be city oversight, and that would be for myself, Director Zachary, our parks manager, Simone Herrera, and we have a crew lead that oversee the golf course contracts and provide support as needed. We also have the golf contract. The golf contract is what we pay for golf maintenance and management oversight. A company we've been working with since 2016, Corsco, is the golf course contractor, and these are the monies. They pay all of the golf course expenditures, and we reimburse Corsco as the monthly based on whatever monies are spent to manage the golf course. And then we also transfer money to capital. And you can see the $1 million increase year over year. We've been making huge strides in repairing and addressing long deferred golf course infrastructure needs, such as sewer lateral replacement, paving, a lot of capital projects going on at the golf course. We are finally ready to commence on some of the larger projects, and so we are funding at a higher level. And I'll go into further detail about how this will work as it relates to the bottom line with the golf course. But we're looking at $1.6 million in capital outlays in fiscal year '26 and just over $2 million in fiscal year '27. Impacts to the golf course for this year, and as they have been similarly in previous years, minimum and living wage increases, increased water costs. The golf course, similar to the Parks and Recreation General Fund, is going to be experiencing a 10% water rate increase, which at a golf course is not insignificant. It's a huge expense. We have vehicle fuel costs, and then the increasing costs for chemicals and soil amendments for the golf course. So you can see here, looks like a Pac-Man. The golf course contract is 66% of the budget, with transfer to capital at 29%, and then just about $300,000 in golf course oversight. Proposed for capital in fiscal year '26 and '27, we have $65,000 for the Players Improvement Fund. The Players Improvement Fund, what we do is set aside $1 from each paid round of golf, is dedicated to capital improvements that enhance the playability of the golf course. So this is a special $1 per round that's set aside, and then the golfers, the golf course management company, the department leadership, and the golfers themselves provide input on projects that they would like to see funded, and then these dollars are utilized to make that happen. This year, for example, tee box renovations were designated as the use of these funds. We have the fund is going to be doing a parking lot redesign and repaving. For the upper lot, there's two sections of it, so you can see $100,000 set aside in fiscal year '26 to get the design and permitting done, and then implement construction in fiscal year '27. Always ongoing is tree removal and replacement. There's a nice selection of trees. They're constantly being monitored and then replaced as they die out. So this is an ongoing capital expense. We hope to have a proper grease trap installed at the restaurant in fiscal year '27. Right now, underground. Right now, it's through a different mechanism. So this is a small capital project that we hope to have done when the parking lot is done, when the construction is going on. The maintenance road is planned on being repaved in July. That's $793,000. It's looking like that'll probably more of $1 million project, but this is right now what we're planning on for just around the corner in a couple of months. Tee box renovations, large cart barn, irrigation renewals, reconstruction of greens, these are all capital projects planned. A driving range renovation, we'll be looking into seeing how we can enhance and improve the driving range, as well as address some drainage issues that are going on out there. Putting green renovations, cart path repairs, rental club replacements, and of course, power turf equipment. For the reserve balance, we have a reserve policy target for the golf fund of 25% of the operating budget, which is for fiscal year 26 proposed at $1.8 million and $2.1 million in fiscal year 27. And I am pleased to report that the actual reserves right now, there is a $2.8 million surplus for this fiscal year. Proposed is $2.1 million in fiscal year 26 and then $0.9 in fiscal year 27. So you can see that for the past few years, the golf course has been accumulating this reserve with the intention of using it as the more significant infrastructure projects were ready to break ground. And we are ready to break ground. So the proposed budget does include an operating deficit in fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27, which will be offset by utilization of these surplus funds. Even with using the reserve surplus, the department proposes and is planning on still having roughly a $900,000 surplus by the end of fiscal year 27. Core performance measurements. We have adopted goals. The city adopted a new performance outcome plan 2 years ago with the implementation of Vision 2030. So every department in the city has the same 3 targets or goals, and then within the city, each department set up their own individual goals on how they tie to the overarching goals, and then specific measurements that we put in place to achieve those goals. So within the first goal, citywide would be having a thriving workforce. The Parks and Recreation Department set a goal to ensure that Parks and Recreation meets or exceeds community expectations through a workforce that is engaged at properly staffed facilities. And one example of a measurement on how we aim to get there is to ensure that we provide regular trainings, safety and professional development for all staff monthly, annually, so that they are prepared to be out in the community delivering those excellent services. Our second goal would be organizational optimization. The goal for the department is to provide residents and visitors with high-quality, safe, healthy, efficient open spaces, parks, beaches, community forest resources, and recreation services that enrich people's lives. So an example of one of those performance measurements would be to complete monthly inspections of our Parks and Recreation facilities. And by regularly inspecting them, we ensure that they're safe and ready to use and provide a community benefit. And lastly, innovation. The department innovation goal is to implement innovative and sustainable work methods and new technologies to support organizational efficiencies. Our performance measurement goal would be to achieve revenue goals through a robust marketing segmentation. That has an extra syllable. Utilizing the website and community outreach tools. We also have other technologies that are being implemented, such as Cartograph, to be used within parks. It's already in use in forestry. We've been, for the past year and a half, actively working to inventory every park space, sign, detail, and when we have that technology leveraged, it allows us to optimize our staff time and resources to make sure that we are, again, maintaining safe spaces for the community to use. That takes me to the recommendation. We propose a recommendation that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend approval of the proposed Parks and Recreation financial plan for fiscal year 26 and 27, including the general fund, golf fund, capital program, and fees and charges schedule. That concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it over for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Nelson. It's comprehensive as always. Yay. Well, I'm sure the questions are going to come thick and fast, but I'm going to kick off with just a couple, and I know you're first on the list, but I want us to kick up with a couple kind of weedy questions just to make sure I understand the numbers. So on page 5 of what we got, which is the Departmental General Fund expenditures chart, we show fiscal year 26, 28, 189, 341, and then 21, 816, 116. So back on slide, I think it was 5, I noted slide 5. And no, it wasn't slide 5. There was the numbers weren't quite the same, and I was just wondering what the difference was. I don't know where I got to the slide, that it was slide 5. 15? Maybe it was 15. But it's when you're into the numbers.
For, let's see. This is our organization chart, so.
No, it was definitely one of the tables.
I printed it so that I would have those page numbers handy, so let me, if you bear with me.
Well, obviously, you can ignore the page number because I got it wrong.
Department revenues, here it is. I believe it is page 16.
Got it really wrong. Yeah, it's that one. So, what am I looking at? How do these two compare?
This is general fund.
Because they're close, but not quite the same.
What are you comparing it?
I'm comparing it to I'm comparing page 5 on this. That's where I got the 5.
On the staff report.
On the staff report. That's where I got the 5. I just want to make sure I'm kind of understanding how all the dots are connecting.
And I don't have.
Chair McGill is questioning why the proposed total in the staff report is different than the proposed total in
On the slide. By about
slide.
$150,000.
Is it less?
It's more in the
The staff report says 28,189,341 for fiscal year 26.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's being, and if it's just kind of
It could be.
plussing and minding and rounding, that's,
It could, when I prepared the staff report, all we had was our proposed dollars. It could be a timing situation that when I pulled the numbers out of the OpenGov database after some changes were made by the budget team, that there was a change to the numbers.
And that's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Because the numbers are proposed, they're not
So, yeah,
finalized.
I wanted Tina to be able to address it first, but one of the challenges we have, it's also an opportunity, is that the city transitioned to OpenGov for its budgeting. And so now that's good because it brings us into a new way of doing business. But it also means our budgets are moving targets all the time.
yeah.
And so they're never exactly what they are until, not only, and usually sometimes after it's adopted by council, because there's twiddling and fiddling and things that happen by the finance department that we find out after the fact. And so part of it is, as Tina mentioned, the staff report was put together last week, right before it became live in the budget. So the budget was presented to the city council, the intro, yesterday. So the commission gets the benefit of kind of looking at it right out of the box, but also sometimes right out of the box, there's still some twiddling. And then I would also add, as we get near the end of the budget process, as council considers issues, and sometimes as staff, we go, oops, we should have X, or this wasn't there, Y. We go in and do adjustments, but those adjustments actually go to council as well. So whatever happens between now and June, I'm not sure what day the budget adoption is, there's some tweaking.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something fundamentally I was missing. That's what I thought the answer was going to be, but, I was just kind of making sure that I was actually, reading the lines correctly. And then this is just kind of a question, and then I'll turn it over to other questions. So if there's $1 a round golf player improvement fund, and how is it $65,000 and not like $75,000?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, it's our best guess. I could make it high, but there are some rounds of golf that aren't full price or that are discounted, that dollar would not be charged to or go to that fund. We have junior rounds that don't count, so even though junior rounds are a paid round of golf, it's not a full. So there's a scale of different golf fees that are corrected. However, at the end of each fiscal year, I true that number up. So there is a report that's run monthly that it's turned in that says this is how many paid rounds of golf, this is how much money should be contributed to the Players Improvement Fund. And if there's more monies received than are budgeted, a budget adjustment is entered at the end of the fourth quarter to balance that account out. And conversely, if it's less than what's budgeted, I would reduce that number and return some of the money back to golf operating so that we don't overfund it as well.
Okay, great, thanks. That makes perfectly good sense. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the first person on my list, which is Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair McGill. Thank you, Ms. Nelson, and then everyone in this room, obviously a team effort. My first question is in the staff report around staffing, looking at the departmental general fund. I noticed that salaries and benefits, which make up 56% of the total expenditure, are increasing from $15 million in FY27 to $16.17 million in FY27. Reading my notes, a lot of numbers here. The Finance Committee yesterday said that the citywide projections for salary growth was 6.7% in 26 and 5.7% in 27, while this department is increasing by 9.1% and then 6.7%. So I just want a little bit of clarity because the plan doesn't specify where these raises are coming from. Is it cost of living adjustment? Are we hiring new time positions, part-time staff? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, that is a great question, and thank you for asking it. We have addressed through hourly staff. We spoke earlier about keeping those wages competitive, and we proposed increasing hourly staff wages within the Parks Division to be competitive within the city. We realized that our hourly rate for our grounds maintenance workers were not competitive and in alignment with the rest of the city, and the city administrator did approve that change for fiscal year 26. So we have a higher increase than the city average to address the hourly staff wages, specifically within the Parks Division.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for shining some light on that. My follow-up question is around the internal service cost increase of 19% year over year. Essentially, what is causing these numbers to jump? I see it just references increasing fees of the services and tools they provide. Can you elaborate on what those are? And do we have any means of controlling or contesting these changes?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, that is also an excellent question. We do not have control over allocated costs. We certainly quite vocally contribute our thoughts on that, but that is an allocated cost, and we are not involved in the budgeting or assignment of those. And it really varies based on the cost. Say, for example, within IT, it's the cost of the licenses for the software. They recently, I think it was this current budget cycle that we're in, that started in fiscal year 24, assigning costs based on headcount rather than a different formula. So you would see a big jump within the Parks Division for that because they have the highest head count within the department, yet most of them don't use computers. So there is different methods to allocating these costs. We do trust in the process. Similar with facilities, it's the cost of their labor, which is increasing year over year. It's the cost of the supplies that they need to subscribe to in order to maintain the facilities and the contracts. So it's the cost of motor pool and really trying to save enough money for vehicle replacement as we approach having to have electric vehicles, which cost significantly more than the fossil fuel powered vehicles that we have now. So there's a myriad, and the cost of insurance, which is increasing. So all of these costs are driven by the economy and economies of scale and are assigned to the department, and we do not have control over them.
Well, no, Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, Gina Nelson did a very good job describing that each department, so the IT department, is funded by the general fund, but also funded by enterprise funds. And they have methodologies to come up with, here's their budget, how's that budget pie gonna get cut up? And so, again, as Tina mentioned, they're doing it by head count, not by, it used to be station. And then obviously, when there's special licenses, that's a special expense, an additional expense, which really does lie with the actual station. And there's other things that IT does on a citywide basis that really aren't they're not department specific necessarily, but they're citywide. And so this is the way they cut it up. Motor pool, we pay in a flat repair rate for every vehicle and a flat replacement rate every single year. So the replacement money goes into this fund that's held over years. So when the vehicle's age is whatever age it is, it ages out and it needs to be replaced. There's a chunk of money sitting in the fund, which hopefully will cover the cost of the new vehicle, but as you might imagine, that's not always the case. And so then we have to come up with a difference out of our budget. So there's a lot of moving targets. And then similarly, the facilities division charges it based on square footage. Well, we have the most facilities, buildings, square footage, whether or not they're touched on an annual basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, doesn't matter. But they have to come up with some way of allocating out their budget. So sometimes our allocations seem significantly high relative to what the department does.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I guess I'll concede my time for now.
Thanks. So, nice to pass the allocated cost mantle. Last year, Nicole said she was going to get me a T-shirt that says, "What about allocated costs?" So Commissioner Aldana's next, but I do want to ask a follow-up since we're on that topic. I mean, it seems like every year the allocated costs go up 20%. I mean, it's like, and every year there's not some great crisis happening that caused the allocated costs to go up 20%. So, I know it's kind of a black box that you don't have control of, but I've always been concerned with them because it's so easy to just, to not really scrutinize things that get allocated out. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I am right in remembering that it's basically 20% a year no matter what's happened in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah. Chair McGill and Commissioners, it is significantly high in this next budget cycle. And what happens is they only really give you the first year. And then when we get to 27, it gets reevaluated. And so it's something that is addressed and evaluated on an annual basis. And I think there are initiatives to find ways to do it differently. And the question is, if the cost is the cost, how do you allocate the cost? And there's a number of different ways to go about doing that.
I mean, is the 20% year-on-year increase consistent with the kinds of increases that you're seeing in the funds that you do control, and the costs that you do control?
Chair McGill, I think it may be higher in this instance, but I don't know that it'll be sustained.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't even know how you drive the conversation at this point, but I have to say it every year. Yeah, I do. Yes, I'll get the T-shirt yet. Commissioner Aldana.
Okay. Okay, regarding the golf, you mentioned parking lot paving, design, construction for 100,000. What exactly is that?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, before we pave, we'll work with an engineering company to do the design, which will include ensuring that the drainage is set up the way it's supposed to be. There's different components that go into designing the repaving project, and that will cost approximately $100,000 to get the engineering designs, which will also include building out the scope of the project, estimated costs, and various components. So it seems high, I know. As I'm getting used to capital, I'm realizing that the engineering fees are part of that.
So currently it's not working properly?
It is working properly, however, it does need to be repaved. And before we repave it, we have to make sure that it's brought up to today's standards within how many ADA parking spaces are required. We'll want to make sure that if we do any lighting improvements, that those are folded into it, that if there's any new drainage requirements, different things like that to bring it up to code is part of that project. So it does need to be engineered.
Got it. And on your reserves, are they being invested? Are you getting any interest?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, yes, we do receive interest income every year, and that's part of the operating revenue budget. So that's something that's included in our overall revenues.
Okay. As far as projects, one more time, well, there's two of them. The West Beach Splash Playground for 2027. Just a little brief detail on that.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, the infamous West Beach wading pool aquatic facility. We have funding in our capital plan right now to restart that project. And similar to what was just described, means we would be hiring technical consultants to sort of start from scratch, basically, reinitiate a community outreach effort to really determine what we should be doing there, what the community wants us to do there, and what's feasible to do there. So it's a little more complicated than we anticipated way back when. The additional funding that's proposed for fiscal year 27 assumes that we've gone through the preliminary design and entitlement process, and that we are completing our final plans and construction documents to actually then subsequently, hopefully, build a project, not knowing yet what that project is. So trying to estimate where we would need additional funds, not for another year and a half.
Got it. And the Ortega Park, the 350,000, that is what again?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana. So we have RRM, who's our design consultant, actually completing construction documents, final plans right now. We anticipate that those will be complete by the end of the calendar year, and then we have to submit for the building permit. One of the key issues that we have to address with that park site is it's a dump. And it was a dump and it's holding all sorts of material from the 1925 earthquake. As a result, it needs remediation, so the soil's contaminated. We know enough about it to know we need to do it, but we need funding to hire our soil consultants to really evaluate what it will cost to do that remediation versus just sort of guess. And so far, we've only guessed. So a portion of that funding will bring in a soil remediation firm to give us a better understanding of what it'll take to actually do the remediation before we can even build the project. And then a portion of the funding covers public works support the city architect reviews the plans, the city engineer reviews the plans. So there's bits and pieces of need for additional funds, and we currently have no additional funds allocated in our capital plan.
5:40 p.m.
Okay. And as far as the utility tax for the street trees and mediums, and can you let me know, remind me how much you receive, and what bang does the community get out of it? You know, how many trees, how many hours of trimming?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, so for the commission, the forestry division, to a large extent, is funded through UUT. So that's the tax you pay on all the utilities that you use in your home. And it covers it covers our street tree budget, but we also have a general fund allocation that also supports street trees and is supposed to support park trees. Tina can provide the actual number. It doesn't go up very much. And then the tree work that occurs is funded through that, and of course it'll vary from year to year. It pays for our staff, it pays for contracts, and then if you noticed from the capital slide, we also get a Measure C supplement that also goes towards street tree maintenance and or tree planting. And we have $250,000 proposed for next year, which we've had for probably now 6 years or so, and then $300,000 for fiscal year 27. The unique thing about the capital allocation this year being fiscal year 26, is we asked for funding to redo our tree inventory. So we did a tree inventory back in 2009, and that information basically told us where all our street trees are, told us mostly where all our park trees are, except open space parks, because that's nearly impossible. The size, the species, the condition, et cetera. When we do tree maintenance work, we enter into our database what we did to each one of those trees that we may have touched. Some get touched every year, some every 5 years, some every 7 years, depending on the species and a variety of other considerations. We want to redo that inventory to sort of check where are we now, because things change, and it also helps us better plan tree maintenance over time. So that'll be an initiative that we do that's unique and really valuable to the city.
And Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I have those numbers for you. The user utility tax dollars are allocated to the Parks and Recreation Department from the Public Works Department. There is right now, the forecast is that there will be an 8.21% increase in user utility tax revenues received. And so for fiscal year 26, we received an 8.21% increase to the revenues that we receive. And then consequently for fiscal year 27, the projection is 2.8% increase to the dollars. And so we received, again, a proportionate increase to the monies that we received. So for street trees for fiscal year 26, the amount received will be $1.12 million. And in fiscal year 27, it'll be $1.15 million. And for parkways and medians in fiscal year 26, it's $229,000. And then $236,000 in fiscal year 27.
So I think it would also be helpful to give them the total forestry budget so they know the difference between the two sources.
Okay, just bear with me one moment and I'll have that for you. So go to forestry. Sorry, my laptop is, there we go.
Or if you want to get back.
Sure,
I'll
have
later.
it for you in just
Okay.
one moment. I've got it right here. So for fiscal year 26, the forestry budget Total proposed revenue in the forestry program is just over $2 million, and that would be for the user utility monies, and then tree permit, removals, things like that. That seems high, actually. I apologize. That's too much revenue for, yeah. Thank you. Oh,
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, it's approximately $2.7 million in total expense for the forestry program next year.
Got it.
thank you.
And yeah, and at a later time,
million
can
in
you
revenue.
just let us know what the community receives? I don't need the answer now. You could email us at your convenience. I'm just curious to know what bang for our buck does the community receive for that 2.4 million?
I apologize. The revenue received for the user utility tax for forestry program is,
No, what does the community receive? How many trees get pruned
Oh.
for that amount of money?
Commissioner Aldana, or sorry, Commissioner McGill, Chair Aldana, that's information that we could have a little
Yeah.
bit more detail around. We're
Right,
planning
yeah.
to
At your
present.
convenience.
Yeah, about the Parks Division in general within the next few months here. And so I think that'd be a good time to share the outputs that you get in the forestry program.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
If I could just add, Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, we used to keep these performance measures on an annual basis, so it was really easy for us to tell you what they are because we've got the data. We have the data, we just don't have the data on a regular basis. But we have goals, sorry, my computer just decided it was done, based on the number of trees that we trim. And sometimes the number can be deceptive. So as you can imagine, we have to trim palm trees every year. But in an actual fact, what's the community benefit of trimming a palm tree every year, other than dealing with the fruit that falls from it? Versus we might have a really large, significant tree that takes a full day of the 2 crews to do, and that's just one tree. So part of when we talk about our tree trimming is we talk about our grid pruning, which is often what we contract out. So it's not just city forestry staff that trim trees. We actually have a lot of contracts with local tree firms, and they do a lot of what we call grid pruning, where it's single species in blocks. It's basic pruning. It's not specialty pruning. Our staff do the specialty pruning. And so when you look at sort of contract pruning versus city pruning, and then you look at street versus parks, streets take precedence over parks. I can tell you that we could use another $1 million every year to trim trees in the city of Santa Barbara. The fact that we have a little bit of Measure C money has helped us. We use Measure C money to do the trimming of the ficus trees on Milpas, as an example. Imagine the number of trees that were trimmed there and the cost of that. It's like the cost per tree is significant. So we have to consider all of those factors. In looking actually at the forestry budget, and we have a slide that we did for, and again, unfortunately, my computer just ran out of battery, a few years ago, which show how the forestry budget has changed over time and how the revenue from UUT has remained relatively flat and the need for general fund support has grown. So whenever there's an increase in budget, whether it's salary and benefits, supplies, allocated costs, we haven't had significant increases in the utility user tax allocation, and so the general funds had to make up the difference in order to fund that program. Hopefully that makes sense. Similarly, for the medians and parkways, that's not the total cost of the program. That's just a little bit of money that comes out of UUT, which supplements the general fund allocation. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And I
it
think when we do a division presentation, we can pull all of that out as part of what we're doing to give you a real sense of the money that's assigned for parks. Where does it specifically go, and what part of it has to do with contracts versus staff, projects, those kinds of things.
Okay, no, thank you.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Nielsen.
Thank you. I think I'll throw out a couple as well. You guys showed a lot of breakdown of how the next 2 years' budget is allocated. Could you comment more on how it was developed? The internal discussions and reviews, the peer reviews with other departments, what it's gone through so far, any methodologies you guys used to forecast these estimates and come up with them and get it in front of us, like Director Zachary was sharing by example, the trend graphs that you guys have for certain features, and just what has gone into it for how long to get to this point?
Sure. I think I'll jump in and then any of the team can also answer. We start talking about the new fiscal year in November. It's April. We actually start talking about capital in September. And the commission got a capital presentation in January. And so just to talk about the operating budget, we look at where we are. We look at, and we'll say in fiscal year 24, we know how we performed. In fiscal year 25, we're seeing how we're performing because we're only through the first quarter and part of the second quarter. We're looking at our revenues and how our revenues are lining up with our projections. And then we at least have a general sense, is what we budgeted in fiscal year 25, and are our revenues kind of in line with that? And then we also look at how do we think things are going to change in the next year, for example. And sometimes we can't forecast that really well until we get our base budget from finance, because we don't control salary and benefits, for example. We don't control allocated costs. We do know what our supplies and services cost, so we all know what it costs to provide supplies to our homes. And we know that the cost of food's gone up, and the cost of everything's gone up. And if you actually track that over time, you'd see, 5-10% increase. So in theory, everybody should be budgeting that much more money for their housing expenses. Sometimes we can do that, but we usually have to take it from another source. Does that make sense? So we have all these different factors that we look at, and then the recreation division staff, our facilities and special events staff, they know how many rentals we have. We know who's using the buildings and the facilities. We know how many park rentals we have. We generally look at, is it playing out the way we think it's going to play out? And then we also look at what others are doing. We need to be competitive with the market, but then we're also a public agency, right? So we also need to be accessible. So we know, for example, the cost to schedule a field in the city of Santa Barbara, don't quote me if I'm wrong, I think it's half what it costs to schedule a field in a school district field. So we also know that some others' costs are way higher, and we're never going to go there because it would make our fields inaccessible to a large segment of the community. So those are some of the things we look at. And the recreation supervisors, they're dealing with this every single day. So they know we're tracking our revenues all the time. For recreation, we know most of our revenue comes in the first part of the year, summertime, because where we have all these programs. When we get our base budget and we see costs going up that we have no control over, water, we know is going up 10% a year. All those things, we then look at, okay, how do our fees have to keep pace with rising costs that we don't have a control over, while still making sure we're meeting our objectives as a department to provide as much park and rec service to as many people as possible. And then we also look at, in some cases, we might have, for example, adult programs is like, maybe we're subsidizing that more than we need to, and so we might increase a fee more. So we're balancing all these different things. And then sometimes we have a facility that's closed. We have no revenue coming in. So we have to budget for no revenue coming in. So if we have staff that were at the Davis Center as temporary staff before it closed, we couldn't retain those staff. Now that it's open again, it's like, oh, well, now we can add staff back because we have revenue coming in to support that building. Does that help give you a sense? It's moderately complicated.
Yeah, and did the trends from the last year that we were given the numbers to this year, did those kind of stay true from prior years? Did you make any significant adjustments to the methodology this year around that hadn't been present in the past?
We didn't. I mean, that we had to adjust up for water, so we did get an additional allocation for that, which is great because we have no control over that. We requested additional funds so we could bring the salaries of our grounds workers up because we had no other way without cutting some other element of our budget, and we couldn't figure out how to do that. I will say, and you saw in the capital account, we added a staff person to manage the Parks and Recreation master plan, but the money in capital is going to help pay for that salary. So we always have to figure out how we're going to pay for things, and we really try to do that on our own before we ask for any additional allocation, particularly since the city's finances, while they're not terrible, actually aren't great, even with Measure I. We're operating at a deficit this year. The anticipation is we will essentially break even next year, tiny little surplus. So there's no major changes to our budget, and we just monitor things, and sometimes we'll adjust revenue down.
And with that in mind, how do you expect this budget to be received by council if it goes forward? Have they already been acclimated to it, and do you expect any pushback?
Great question. The budget will be presented to council next Tuesday. In recent history, each department would present their budget in significant detail, and both Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark can remember those days. We don't do that anymore. So all of the general fund departments will get presented next Tuesday, and we each have one slide. So, and that slide basically talks about, we propose what should be on the slide: major initiatives, any significant changes, and capital projects. And for Parks and Recreation, there aren't any. The biggest thing is, in terms of our major initiatives, is we'll be starting construction of the Dwight Murphy Field project. That's budgeted in capital in other places, but it's people working on it, for example.
Thank you, Director Zachary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge change from years past. Commissioner Price.
Thank you, Chair McGill. So I have two items. First of all, I really like the core initiatives, and I was wondering, kind of in two parts, historically, has the commission been updated on progress? And then kind of on a go-forward basis, how will we be updated on progress on these initiatives?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, this is a relatively new initiative. There is the ability to, through our transparency website, we do keep our core initiatives updated on a quarterly basis, or some of the goals are annual, some of them are quarterly, and some of them are measured mid-year, but we do update them quarterly, and they are accessible on the city website. And I believe I linked it in the memo, but we can also provide that information through staff reports at commission meetings, however you'd like to receive them. In the past, I'm not sure, I haven't been here that long to know if the P3, the old performance measures, were introduced. So perhaps.
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, we used to do presentation on our performance measures. I think a quick check for those of us that have been around. I was actually on the team that created them a while ago, as you can imagine. I would anticipate that our performance is largely pretty on par with what we used to report on. Plus, we have the data. We just need to pull the data, and we can provide that. The core measures are great, but they don't give you quantifiable, well, what did you do? And sometimes quantifying everything doesn't actually tell you what you did as well. So part of it is we have to balance it with qualifying what we achieved. And that comes through in a larger report of how things have changed over time. And from one year to the next may not always be the best way to report something. I can say, come in the fall, we also report on our summer camps, and we also provide very detailed numbers on participants, on revenues, and then we can also do a comparison in prior years as well.
Thank you very much. And then secondly, I did want to recognize everyone in this room for the city of Santa Barbara received 2 national awards related to budgeting. One of them was the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, and the Operating Budget Excellence Award from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers. And these honors represent the city's continued commitment to meeting the highest standards of government budgeting by producing a comprehensive and transparent budget document that clearly communicates their financial plan and operations to the public. These were awarded for fiscal year '25, and I look forward to you winning them again in '26. So thank you very much.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, the kudos, yes, everybody in the city that gets into budget participates in that, but the finance department really pulls it all together, so they get some kudos for that as well.
All right. Vice Chair Clark.
Thank you. My questions also regarded the core performance metrics, and if they can be answered by me going to the link that you include in our packet, just let me know. But my questions were, looking at the goal of thriving workforce, what are the metrics for showing that the department has met that goal? How do you measure engagement and proper staffing? What opportunities do staff have for shared governance, going to conferences, continuing their learning through scholarships and programs like that? And my second question regarding core measures is when you talk about efficient open space, park, beach, and community forest resources, what does an efficient open space, park, or beach look like? Does that mean maximizing the opportunities people have to recreate in those spaces with the minimum number of staff and dollars?
I apologize. So for the first question, Chair McGill, Vice Chair Clark, each division measures it by quantifying how frequently the trainings are offered. And then we report into that collectively as a database. So each department manager, division manager, tracks that within their division, and our goal is to have the monthly safety trainings. And I do know that as we have, we do budget also for those professional developments. There is money in fiscal year '26 budget for professional development, for some travel to conferences. So there's a variety of ways that the training is offered, and then we measure that by keeping track, and then staff signs into trainings. There's a variety of trainings that are available, and all staff are encouraged to participate as much as possible. It is a high priority for the department to do that. And then the second question?
I was just looking at the other goal of organizational optimization and use the word efficient in regards to open space, park, beach, community forest resources. And I just wanted to know what the definition of efficiency in this context meant.
That is a good question.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, let me go back to your first question before I answer the second question. And I think Simone Herrera can come up and talk about the training that he does for his staff. So you're getting into minutia and the details. So we can come back and give that to you, how we do that. As an operating department, every single day we're doing something that's related to staff training, staff enrichment, staff growth. They do weekly trainings, they do monthly trainings, they do a variety of things. And as a department, we have to do that to build and maintain a high-quality staff. Similarly, when we look at organizational optimization and we say efficient, efficiency can mean a number of different things. So we have 60 parks, and we have a very small ground staff. And so when we're talking about efficiency, for example, we have staff that are assigned to 4 different work groups within the city. And we plan on the direction and the frequency with which they visit any park or open space, with the idea that they're not going up to the Riviera, down to the beach, over to the bird refuge, So efficiency can mean that we're actually trying to plan their work in a way so they can hit all those parks, do whatever they can in the limited time that they have, and then also move on. And I'm going to speak for Tina because this is actually a project that I asked her to lead probably like 2 years ago. And I said, we need to count, we need to locate, count, and bring in one location all of our tools, all of our equipment, everything we have, and we need to make sure that each truck has what it needs when it leaves the yard every day. So that we're not going over here to pick up X, and we're not going over here to pick up Y, and we're not going over here to do this. So those are just examples of what we do as an operating department to run our business. So you could ask any business leader or owner, what do you do to operate efficiently? And they'll give you a laundry list of many things that you do. And it really speaks to the fact that, and it's hard to articulate in this, and part of it is this core, what we have to do for core is it's just these words, but what do you actually do? And what we do is not what Public Works does, or not what Finance does, or for example. We couldn't do what we do with as little resources we have and have people be happy without achieving this. And Jasmine, I'm sure, may want to jump in and add some more.
Just a really specifically, the answer, commissioners, is if you go to the Finance Department budget webpage, which is linked in the document that you have at the very bottom of that report, it'll take you to the webpage. It's a little tricky to learn to use, but that webpage will, in alphabetical order, show each department. The very first item that you see under Parks and Recreation says Department Overview. And if you scroll all the way to the very bottom of that, you will see all of the performance metrics that we have identified as connected specifically to these core 3 measures. So that'll give you an insight if you just want to see what we chose to measure. But I think that Jill's response provided a lot more context, that we're trying to do what we can to show it on this webpage, but truly there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Part of it is,
I think maybe my question was maybe a little misunderstood. I'm trying to convey, I think there's ways to approach efficiency that just aren't measurable. So if the department had adequate funding so that people could go to the Trails and Greenways Conference, so that they go do other education, get inspired and motivated and come back, you're going to have staff retention, you know this. And I think sometimes you just don't have the funds to do what you need to do, and you've gotten so efficient and you're so good at what you do. It just seems a shame that you have to be that efficient. That's all.
Is that you? Okay. Oops, I accidentally cleared both, but Commissioner Nielsen.
Was there anything that got cut from the proposed budget that is worth commenting on? Do you feel like the budget as it stands captures what you want to accomplish, although you can always do more, and there's lots that we'd like to do? Is there anything that was particularly painful to pitch overboard?
Chair McGill, Commissioner,
Nielsen.
Nielsen, thank you. I should know that. It's close to my last name. We did propose, in addition to increasing the hourly salaries for our parks maintenance crew, our part-time staff, to have additional hours to really achieve the goals that we have in mind for the work that they do, and that did not get approved. So I'd say that that was a pain point for the department and for the division, because it is work that is important and that needs to be done, and it did require extra hours, but unfortunately, that was not approved, so.
That was not at a finance review? When was that decision made?
This was.
Internally, or?
It was made internally with the city administrator and the budget team, as they reviewed the entire city's requests for increases or changes to the base budget that we all try to balance to. So what we did was we absorbed as much as we possibly could through increased revenue, or, just balancing our budget the best we could with the monies that we already had. And when we proposed we would like additional monies to address these areas, for that particular thing. And we didn't ask for much, but that was one thing that we asked for that was denied. However, we are very thankful to have been approved for the increase. So it was a twofold ask, and so we did get half of it. So that was very wonderful, really, for our crew, for us to be able to hire the talent that we need in order to do the work out in the parks.
Thank you. Yeah, and if I could ask a question about the Gulf Fund, what are the limitations of that use and how the golf course in that facility is used? It's obviously a high revenue center. It supports itself and it seems to be doing well. Do those funds, can they be used to expand the applications and the programming within that parcel? For example, there's disc golf and there's other forms of golf and there's other programming and stuff for that parcel. What are the restrictions that we have to operate in for that fund and that parcel?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, the restrictions are that it is spent on the golf course and the golf programs. I don't know that it doesn't allow for other activities, say. However, the use of the golf course right now with the number of rounds that are being played, it's a heavily used golf course. So to add additional activities to the golf course could also increase the wear and tear and could increase operational costs to maintain it. So we are always exploring the best use of the space. However, it is restricted right now for golf and play at the golf course.
Yeah. Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, we treat it as a quasi-enterprise fund. And if you were a commissioner 11 years ago, this golf course was operating in the red. And we were losing money. And Simone Herrera actually was our last golf course superintendent. And the city council made the difficult decision of transferring maintenance of the golf course to a private operator in order to be able to financially be able to support the golf course. The first few, and that is Courseco, so they are in their 10th, going into their 10th year of an agreement with us. It was a very long, drawn-out process. That happened. The staff that were still city staff at the time were absorbed into our Parks Department division. And so we didn't lose anybody as a result of that. We hired a very professional management company. We actually are hoping to have them come do a presentation to the commission, perhaps in September, but don't quote me on that. We still need to figure out the schedule. And the pandemic is actually what has allowed the golf course to turn around. So we were basically breaking even for the first number of years of their agreement. Then we were actually generating revenue above budget. And now we're actually able to go and fix all sorts of things that have been ignored for decades. So we actually probably need more reserves to complete all the things that we need to do. And then trying to diversify the golf course would, as Tina mentioned, make it very difficult to even, we've got things that we just have to do for the golf course. We just replaced the sewer lateral. Not very exciting, but expensive. We're working on our maintenance road. Hasn't been touched in probably 40 years, 35 years. Not very exciting, but critical. So we've got critical infrastructure things that we need to do that we can't really siphon any money off or distract from what we currently do there. And I would add, and you'll hear more when you have a more detailed presentation, the golf course among the golfing community is very well received today because we have the ability to maintain it at a high enough level that people want to be there. Before, we were literally just getting by, and now we have the ability to do more than just get by.
Wonderful. If that trend continues and we catch up on all the deferred maintenance of the last couple decades, I think I would just ask that maybe we can increase accessibility and find other ways to bring other community members to that wonderful piece of land. I personally can't swing a golf club, but love playing disc golf, and so every time I drive by that property, I'm like, oh, I wish I had an opportunity to throw a disc or a frisbee or walk that course, since I'm not particularly a golf player, but maybe that will be someday down the road.
Would you mind talking a little bit about the community events that the golf course sponsors?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, yes, the golf course offers 4 community events annually that are free and accessible to everyone. In fact, we just had the golf course had the annual extravaganza. It was last Saturday. It was very well attended. The mayor was there as master of ceremonies, along with our general manager of Randy Shannon. Police command was there. The Easter Bunny was there. There was face painting. There was a bouncy house. There was music. There were golf games. It was a really, really fun event and couldn't beat the weather. It was a sunny, beautiful day. Over 6,000 eggs, and there was 100 to 125 children in each age category, plus their parents and their grandparents, and a lot of fun was had by all. So that is the spring community event. In May, on May 10th, there will be a family movie night that anybody is welcome to come. It is going to be Moana 2, and you bring your beach chairs and your blankets, and there is free popcorn and the opportunity to sit under the stars and watch a Disney movie with whoever you want to bring with you. And that's and there's going to be another movie event in September. The date hasn't been set yet, but that will also be a family focused airing of a movie yet to be determined. And then as we approach the year-end holidays, there is a winter family fun with Santa and Mrs. Claus, and games and other activities that are provided. So these are all ways that the golf course is utilized to introduce and make the golf course accessible to the community so that they can share how much fun golf is and what a wonderful space the golf course is.
That's wonderful. I didn't know about those movie nights. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Aldana, and then I've got a couple questions.
Just one question. Okay, I noticed the Dwight Murphy field. This could be a question for Mr. It has to do with the field itself, because you got artificial and you have natural, and you're leaning towards artificial, correct?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, the multi-sport field
Yes.
is artificial.
Okay.
And then there will be a natural turf area between the field and the playground. It's already been approved,
Right.
designed, and will be constructed.
Okay, so, but then my question is, on the artificial, out in the community, they're saying it's cancerous, it's dust that comes up. Just curious to know, is there any new and improved type of material that is safer?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, we're using natural fill for the turf field. And when we get to construction, we can come and do a presentation on more details about the project. But this is outside kind of today's discussion.
Yeah, I think
It's
we-
about budget.
I think
So we don't want to
details
stray
about
too far from that. Thank you.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner Nielsen asked the question about things that were the pain point of what's not being done. My sense in reading this is that in terms of, say, recreational programs, things like that, this is largely the same program that we've seen in the previous year or years that just costs more. Is that a correct, everybody's nodding their heads. So there's not, while we would, I personally would love to see like more summer fun programming, it's not like summer fun is going away. There's not a significant program going away. It's this, it's just everything costs more. Is that?
Chair McGill, we cut the second summer fun site when we did budget reductions. And
Back
so
when,
as
but yeah.
last year and the year
Yeah,
prior.
yeah.
One thing I think it would be helpful for the commission to note is we did not have to do budget reductions in fiscal year '26 or '27. And in the 2 prior years, we did. And during the pandemic, it was significant.
Yeah.
So this is actually one of the better places that the department's been in many years. And I also say, from year to year, things change. So as you know, we contract with different recreation providers. Things evolve over time. It's not like a hard start and a hard stop. Occasionally, there's a hard start and a hard stop. But then programs and services evolve during the course of a year. Some things drop off because there isn't a lot of interest in it. Some things grow because it's new, and so we add more of this and more of that, less of this and less of that. But again, that gets into a level of detail that's beyond the budget presentation for today.
Yeah, and the reason I was asking the question is I think it's important for us to understand if there's programs and services being increased or cut. I think that is appropriate to the discussion today. And also, in previous years, we'd had some pretty significant conversations about stretch targets and target reductions that were, notably missing from this year's conversation. And I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it the way I thought I was understanding it. So then a couple questions on fees. Was I reading it right that some fees, I was kind of doing it online and I was following the little lines and the strikeouts. And am I reading it right that some fees were actually reduced for, back in the back of the pack? That's a detail that, I don't, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but the real question I have in terms of when you're looking at fee changes for services and facilities, have you had the conversation about whether resident fee increases are a different percentage than non-resident fee increases? In other words, reducing subsidies potentially on non-residents for programs and services?
Chair McGill, I'd like Rich Hanna and Adam Porte to answer this question.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, Rich Hanna, Recreation Manager. So in some cases, we do reduce fees, but I would say we look at it not just from a resident or a non-resident standpoint. And where I see that the most, we may reduce a facility rental fee, and that's because we have the capacity to add more rentals at a lower rate. So when we did the slide on kind of how we generate revenue and how we look at fees and charges, participation, number of rentals do drive revenue for the department. So in some cases, we will make reductions. In terms of the reducing the subsidy to non-residents versus residents, that's been a policy that's been in this department for at least, I'm going to say, 20 years of my 30. The 20% subsidy is really because we're providing those services to other parts of the community that do not provide those. And so there is a cost for us to provide those when the city is not receiving those tax revenues. So if you look at our camps and our programs where there's a 10% subsidy, that allows people that may be living in Goleta or the non-incorporated areas or people that want to come in from Carpinteria to participate in our programs, and we're not receiving that tax revenue for, from their living here in the community. And the facilities 20% is pretty on line with, we're still under the private sector, well under the private sector, but it allows us to generate revenue to offset a lot of the free programs that we offer to the community as well.
Yeah, and really where I was going with the question is I would favor the resident over the non-resident in terms of if you're looking for having a disparity, just because it's the city of Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Chair McGill, I would just add to that. I think we've looked at that over the past, and in terms of do we shorten that subsidy or but it would basically be saying we're going to take away the non-resident percentage increase and then push that back onto the residents of the city, and that's not something that the department's evaluated at any depth at this point.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, okay. And I guess oh, go ahead.
That's all right. He covered everything.
Okay. So then the other question, I guess it gets, I think that covers me on the fees. But I want to spin back to your question on timing and process and everything in the budget. And I know we've had this conversation before because it's going to city council next week. Obviously, we, the thorough job and the constraints you work under, there's limited input that we can, meaningful input we as a commission can give to building a budget. I mean, it's just, all hands on deck, hard work, building a budget. But my question to you all is, in terms of us being able to really understand what you're grappling with and providing meaningful feedback and input, since you are actually asking us to make a recommendation at the end, you actually are asking us to approve this at the end of the day, or recommend it, not approve, recommend it is the proper phrase. What realistically is the earliest that we could actually start to become part of this conversation in a meaningful way? Because this is about the latest I think we can become part of this conversation. And I know I've asked that question before.
Chair McGill and commissioners, not until the city council receives the budget. It's the policy. I will say that during the economic recession, the commission was very engaged because we made significant reductions to our department to the tune of 30+%. And they happened on a quarterly and sometimes a monthly basis. And we were trying to get ahead of the curve, and we were given direction by the city administrator at that time. We're making very tough decisions. That's not the case today, because that was throughout the year. I think if you recall, and also Commissioner Clark recalls, and also Commissioner Aldana, when we have key issues about the budget, if it's a citywide discussion and therefore already a public discussion, then we can come to our commission because council's already discussing it. When we've presented in the last number of years, we had to call out the tough decisions and proposals that we made, and we were able to have the commission weigh in. And at the time, there were more hearings because difficult decisions were being made. In the case of this budget cycle, I think the news is we're going to move forward in a reasonable fashion for the next 2 years. Yes, there's always more resource we could apply to our department, but there's only so much resource in the city, so we're just one of many, and so that's the balance. If we wanted to have a separate commission discussion about, and we will, for example, speaking to Commissioner Nielsen's comments, when we start the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, well, no, we don't have a disc golf course in the city of Santa Barbara. They exist somewhere else. If that's something that comes up through community discussion, then we'd have to figure out where we'd have to integrate it into a master plan and then figure out where it's going to go. So part of really what I think the commission's role is as it relates to the implementation of programs and services and/or specifically the improvements that we make to our parks and our recreation facilities, which have a budgetary effect, significant, because we're choosing to reinvest in Dwight Murphy Field and Ortega Park. And that's where your role comes in, because then you can advocate that the city, for example, should set aside the money to build these parks. Does that make sense? So part of it is, we need to know in advance what we're able to have a discussion, a public discussion. So it already has to be in the public realm because the city council really needs to hear this first as our leaders.
Okay, thanks. I think with that, and again, I think we're probably at the point where we can, since I'm not lighting, my panel's not lighting up, we can go back to the recommendation page and wherever that is. It's at the end. And thank you. There we are. And again, I know how much work this is because I've been through a few of these presentations now, and it's just, the level of detail that goes into this and the amount of work that's done by everybody in the team. And I've, I don't know if I've ever worked or been involved with a group that is so adept at efficiently and yet still compassionately squeezing blood out of turnips or stones or whatever it is you're squeezing them out of. You guys really know how to make a dollar work, which is, kudos to everybody, and which takes commitment and passion. So with that, we have a recommendation that we recommend approval of the proposed Parks and Recreation Financial Plan for the fiscal year 2025.
Chair McGill, I apologize, that is a typo. It should be 2026, 2027.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can voice that in for fiscal year 26, 27, including the general fund, golf fund, capital program, and fees and charges schedule. And
Second.
Okay. So I just moved and we just seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Can we just go ahead and, yeah, I'm ready. Yep. All righty. Done. Well done, guys. And with that, I think that's it. That was it for this year's budget meeting. Thank you very much, and I think that will adjourn the meeting.